It's funny how sometimes the biggest insights, the things that really make you think about, well, everything, humanity, nature, society, don't come from the usual places like textbooks or big debates.
Right.
Sometimes they're hidden in plain sight in these seemingly niche cultural events, things that maybe feel ancient, a bit out of step with modern life.
Mm-hmm. But they hold on to something important.
Exactly. Like we all acknowledge spring, right?
Yeah.
Or the harvest, those big, obvious cycles.
Sure. They're part of the calendar.
But what about the cycles that are, well, more private, maybe even considered taboo in a lot of places?
Yeah, things people don't usually talk about openly.
So what does it actually mean when a whole community, a whole region, decides to publicly acknowledge, even celebrate, something so deeply personal, so biological?
That's a really interesting question.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at the Ambubachi Mela, and believe me, this is not just another festival. It's incredibly unique, deeply significant. It happens every year in India.
At the Kamakhya Temple, right?
Yeah.
In Assam.
That's the one. Perched on Nilekal Hill in Guwahati. And it happens during the monsoon season, usually around June, in the Hindu month of Ashada.
Okay.
And the big question for us today is really, what makes this festival so incredibly different? Why does it stand out, and what can we learn from it?
What's the core thing that sets it apart?
Precisely. So our mission for this deep dive is to really, peel back the layers of the Ambubachi Mela. We want to go beyond just the religious stuff, which is fascinating in itself, obviously, but also explore its cultural impact, its connection to ecology, the social dynamics, even the economics of it.
Right, get the whole picture.
Yeah. We want to pull out those key nuggets of knowledge from the sources we've looked at. And I think you'll find some pretty surprising connections here about fertility, nature, and how different societies can view the feminine principle.
And the sources we have are quite rich, aren't they? We've got articles, more academic explorations, even some firsthand accounts.
Exactly. A good mix.
Which is great because it gives us this 360-degree view. It's not just about the rituals themselves, but the why behind them, the deep spiritual roots, how it all plays out today in modern India.
Mm.
It lets us see it less as just, a religious event isolated over there, and more as this living, breathing thing, a real testament to India's cultural and spiritual landscape. It's pretty remarkable stuff.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. Because the absolute heart of this, the core concept of Ambubachi Mela is, well, it's striking. The festival marks the symbolic menstruation of goddess Kamakhya. Yeah. She's the main deity there at the temple. I mean, just pause on that for a second. A massive annual festival attracting huge crowds, centered entirely around a goddess's natural cycle.
It's quite something. Our sources really stress how it underscores the sanctity of the natural cycle of life and reproduction. That's not just a side note. It's the absolute foundation.
Right. And it's explicitly different from many other festivals because it's fundamentally rooted in the acknowledgement and reverence of the feminine principle and its inherent power.
Right.
It's not celebrating in spite of this biological process. It's celebrating because of it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And to really get why that's so significant, you need to understand Goddess Kamakhya herself. And the temple. Mm. She's not just a generic fertility goddess.
No.
She's very specifically linked to sexual desires, and she's a central figure in tantric worship.
Which is a distinct path within Hinduism, right? Focusing on divine energy, often through ritual meditation.
And a very strong focus on the feminine divine, Shakti, as the ultimate reality. Mm-hmm. So Kamakhya's role is already quite unique within the pantheon.
Okay.
And then there's the temple itself. Kamakhya Temple isn't just any temple. It's one of the most important Shakti pithas in India.
These are the spots where parts of goddess Sati's body are said to have fallen.
Precisely. The story is, epic. After Sati died, Shiva was distraught, carrying her body, threatening the universe with his grief-fueled dance.
Right, the Tandava.
Yeah. So Lord Vishnu stepped in, used his Sudarshan chakra to dismember Sati's body, and the pieces scattered across the land, creating these powerful energy centers, the Shakti Pithas.
Okay, I remember that mythology.
And the belief is that Sati's yoni, her womb, her vulva, the very symbol of creation, fell right there on Nilekal Hill.
Wow.
Which, as our sources point out, makes the Kamakhya Temple the ideal venue for a festival centered on menstruation and fertility. The connection is incredibly direct and profound.
It really grounds the whole thing in this powerful origin story.
Absolutely. And the temple building itself reflects this. It's described as this incredible blend of architectural styles, ancient Hindu and Tantric. You see these intricate carvings, sculptures telling these very stories.
So the mythology is literally built into the walls.
Pretty much. And the location up on that green hill, it has this serene, almost mystical feel. Very conducive to meditation reflection, which fits perfectly with the whole event.
So this core belief system, then, it's really tying divinity directly to the earth. The idea is that the earth, as a manifestation of goddess Kamakhya, undergoes her annual menstrual cycle. It's not just poetry. For the devotees, this is real.
And lives reality, yeah.
And this directly links to farming, to agrarian traditions. The idea is that this divine cycle makes the soil particularly fertile. It's this beautiful, integrated view.
It really is. Divinity isn't separate from nature. It is nature.
And just think about the implications of that. If you truly believe the earth is a living goddess going through her cycles, how does that change your relationship with it?
You wouldn't just exploit it, right?
Yeah.
There's reverence, respect, a need to let it rest, recover.
Exactly. Which ties into what that one pilgrim said in our sources. Remember, I come here every year to feel the divine energy. The 3 days of seclusion teach us patience and reverence for nature's cycles.
Yeah, that quote really captures it. A time for introspection and renewal. It fosters this deep symbiotic connection.
It does.
And what's so fascinating is how this ancient belief provides this lens for universal ideas, birth, renewal, the whole cycle of life.
Yeah.
It weaves them right into everyday spiritual practice. It really underscores the interconnectedness of spirituality with nature. They aren't separate domains. They're completely intertwined.
And it also even just fundamentally challenges those taboos around menstruation we mentioned.
Right. We'll get more into that. But at its very core, celebrating a goddess menstruating flies in the face of stigma.
Absolutely. In so many places, it's hidden, considered impure.
But here, it's elevated. It's divine. It's the source of fertility and renewal.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement in itself. It reframes a biological fact as sacred power.
So, following from that core belief, the rituals during the Mela are, well, they're quite dramatic. The most visible one is the temple closing for 3 days.
Symbolizing the goddess's seclusion, her rest period.
Exactly. And it's not just the temple. Our sources say all religious activities are suspended and farming works are not undertaken in the region.
Wow, so it impacts daily life significantly.
Yeah, it reflects that traditional idea of an unclean or resting period for the goddess, for the earth itself.
Okay.
And then there's this really potent visual detail from the sources. The small stream which flows from the temple becomes red, signifying the blood flowing out of the goddess.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now, scientifically, it might be iron oxide in the soil washed down by the monsoon rains.
Sure, there's probably a geological explanation.
But for the devotees, it's a direct, visible sign, a manifestation of the goddess's cycle right there in the landscape. Imagine seeing that.
That's incredibly powerful. It makes the belief tangible.
It really does.
So you have this interesting dynamic then. The temple is closed, the stream runs red, symbolizing this private, internal process for the goddess.
Right.
But what's happening inside and outside the temple walls during those 3 days?
Well, inside, it's very private. The sources say priests perform secretive ceremonies within, ensuring that the goddess's privacy is respected.
So there's this sense of mystery, reverence for her seclusion.
Exactly. But outside, it's a completely different scene. Thousands of devotees gather, chanting prayers, singing bhajans.
Devotional songs.
Right. And engaging in spiritual discussions. So you have this intense public devotion happening right outside the closed doors.
That contrast is fascinating. Private ritual inside, public devotion outside.
Yeah, it kind of reinforces the importance of the event for everyone, even while the core act is kept sacred and unseen.
It builds anticipation, too, I imagine, that collective waiting.
Definitely. And then after those 3 days, the temple reopens. There's this ritual cleansing.
The goddess is ritually bathed and her purity restored.
And then the gates are thrown open. Huge moment. And that's when the prasad is distributed, the blessed offerings.
Ah, yes, the tangible takeaway.
Right, and it comes in 2 forms, according to our sources. There's Angabastra.
Which is cloth.
Yeah, specifically pieces of red clothes, symbolic of the goddess's feminine power, like imbued with the energy of her cycle.
Wow.
And then there's Angadhak, which is described as sacred white water.
And these are believed to carry her blessings.
Exactly. They serve as a medium for spiritual renewal. It's not just a souvenir. It's seen as a direct connection, a tangible piece of grace.
You can understand why people cherish it. That other quote comes to mind. Receiving the prasad is like receiving the grace of the goddess herself. Every prayer heard and answered.
Yeah, that really captures the feeling. It's the culmination of that waiting, that devotion.
And it ties back perfectly to that idea of patience and reverence. The whole structure, the waiting, the anticipation, the final receiving of the prasad, it actively cultivates that spiritual patience, that connection.
It's an embodied experience, not just intellectual.
Totally. And for the huge crowds, having these shared moments, these rituals everyone participates in, must create such a powerful sense of community.
In the middle of potentially millions of people, yeah, that shared focus would be intense.
Binds everyone together.
Speaking of millions, the scale. We need to talk about the sheer scale. The sources compare it to the Kumbh Mela.
Which is just mind-bogglingly huge. The Kumbh Mela of the Northeast, they call it.
Yeah, it puts it in perspective immediately. It's a phenomenon seeing these thousands upon thousands of pilgrims.
The sources describe this frenzied rush to Guwahati.
Totally. Trains loaded with pilgrims, just packed. And this sudden growth in the population of sadhus and ascetics, the whole city transforms.
It must be an incredible sight. And the mix of people is just fascinating. This confluence of devotion, mysticism, and ancient rituals.
Yeah, who actually comes?
Well, you have the huge numbers of ordinary pilgrims, the householders,
Yeah.
many from West Bengal, Odisha, Bihar. Apparently, you hear a lot of Bengali and Oriya spoken.
So a strong regional pull.
Definitely. These are regular families staying in makeshift tents and camps, and their dedication is just, wow. Enduring those overloaded trains year after year.
Driven purely by faith.
Yeah. But then you have the figures who really capture the imagination, the wandering ascetics, tantric practitioners, and sadhus.
The holy men and women.
Right. And they are apparently the biggest crowd pullers. Their appearance alone, saffron robes or ash-covered bodies, sometimes really outlandish get-ups.
Dreadlocks, body paint, maybe even nudity.
All of that. They definitely get all the attention. But they're not just there for looks. They share esoteric knowledge, perform rituals, bless pilgrims. People flock to them.
Seeking wisdom or blessings.
And apparently many of these sadhus return every year, so regular pilgrims get to know them. There's this whole recurring ecosystem.
That's amazing, like familiar faces in this massive crowd.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. You also get balls, the singing minstrels from Bengal, adding music and poetry.
Ah, okay, so a performance element too.
In groups like blouseless, impoverished old widows, primarily from Bengal and Orissa, making this difficult journey for spiritual solace.
Wow, it really highlights the inclusivity, welcoming even the marginalized.
It truly is a microcosm of India's spiritual diversity, all converging in one place.
The atmosphere must just be electric, that aura of mystery from the mystics. Mixed with this incredible spiritual diversity, mainstream Hinduism rubbing shoulders with esoteric Tantra, all coexisting.
Harmoniously, the sources emphasize.
And the energy. The
Go on.
area around Nilakal Hill apparently does not sleep for about 2 weeks.
Constant activity.
Yeah, continuous singing by the balls, tantric practices, attracting hordes of crowds. Just imagine the sounds, the sights, the smells.
Sensory overload.
Totally, being immersed in that, witnessing all these different ways people express devotion. It must be overwhelming, but also incredibly enriching. A true cultural immersion.
Definitely. And that takes us beyond just the religious aspect, right? This is a massive cultural event.
Absolutely.
It really embodies the spirit of Assam, showing the deep reverence people there have for Kamakhya. It's woven into the local identity.
Not just imported, but deeply local too.
Right. And it showcases this unique blend of spirituality and folk traditions. You get glimpses of local customs, art forms, music, all tied into the festival.
So faith and local culture are intertwined.
Completely.
Yeah.
That makes it much richer than just doctrine. It's a living heritage.
And socially, that coming together of people.
It's huge. A massive platform for social interaction and cultural exchange.
People from all walks of life.
Exactly. Pilgrims from various backgrounds and regions come together, transcending barriers of caste, creed, and language.
Which is significant in itself.
Very. It's a real demonstration of unity and diversity, fostering this sense of communal harmony, even if just temporarily.
That traveler quote summed it up well. Not just a religious event, it's a celebration of humanity, warmth and camaraderie.
Yeah, that really resonates. How did these huge gatherings manage that? Breaking down barriers, creating that shared feeling.
It's a powerful dynamic. Maybe the shared purpose, the shared reverence.
Could be. And then there's the economic side, which is also pretty significant.
Right, mustn't forget that.
The festival provides a major boost to the local economy in Guwahati and nearby areas.
Makes sense with all those visitors.
Yeah, local vendors, craftsmen, artisans get a crucial chance to sell their goods.
What kind of things?
Everything from traditional Assamese handicrafts like bamboo work, silks, to spiritual paraphernalia like prayer beads, idols.
Things people need for rituals.
Exactly. And also decorative items, carnelian beads, things like that. The influx of visitors boosts tourism across the board, hotels, transport, food. It creates vital livelihoods.
So it's this whole ecosystem, faith, culture, and economy all interconnected.
Precisely. The sacred becomes a source of sustenance for the community.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and think about the modern relevance, the contemporary discussions around the Mela. That environmental link feels very timely.
Absolutely. The festival's connection to the monsoon, to fertility, inherently highlights that symbiotic relationship between spirituality and ecology.
It's like an ancient reminder built into the calendar honoring Earth's cycles, the need to protect nature.
A very potent message for today, isn't it?
It really is. Makes you wonder if these ancient ways of seeing nature as divine hold wisdom we've lost.
And it's not just philosophical. There are practical steps being taken now.
Towards sustainability.
Yeah. The sources mention conscious efforts to ensure the festival is celebrated sustainably. Things like waste management plans, reducing plastic use, keeping the temple area clean.
So adapting the tradition to modern environmental awareness.
Exactly. It shows the tradition isn't static. It can evolve. It's applying that core reverence for nature in concrete ways.
That's encouraging. But with that huge scale must come challenges too, right? Logistically.
Oh, definitely. The challenge is typical of large-scale gatherings.
Strain on infrastructure.
Huge strain. Transportation, sanitation, accommodation. Imagine providing for potentially millions descending on one area.
It's a massive undertaking.
Authorities and organizers work incredibly hard, setting up temporary facilities, managing crowds, ensuring safety. But as the Mela gets even more popular,
It requires constant innovation.
yeah, new solutions are needed to manage the crowds and the impact effectively, especially with added pressures like climate change affecting the monsoons or resources.
Makes you think what kind of innovations could help. Technology, community models.
Good question. It's an ongoing challenge for any event of this magnitude.
And this brings us to perhaps the most talked about aspect in recent times, the connection to menstruation itself.
Right. This is where the metalemma becomes really relevant globally. Because it celebrates a goddess menstruating, it directly challenges taboos and stigmas.
Stigmas that are still incredibly prevalent worldwide.
Yeah.
Shame, impurity, silence.
Exactly. But here you have a major spiritual event that flips the script entirely, sacralizes it, makes it divine, powerful, creative.
That's a radical act in many ways.
It really is. And activists and scholars are noticing. They're using the festival as a platform to advocate for greater acceptance and understanding of menstrual health and rights.
Leveraging its unique position to start conversations.
Precisely. Challenging biases, promoting education about menstrual hygiene. It's this amazing intersection of ancient spirituality and modern social activism.
So what does it mean when your divine figure embodies something often shamed in daily life?
It forces you to confront that disconnect, doesn't it? It opens up space for dialogue. It shows how a tradition can become a catalyst for change, pushing society to rethink fundamental attitudes about bodies, gender, and health.
It's not just reflecting norms, it's actively shaping them.
Potentially, yes. It's a powerful example of culture's role in social evolution.
So wrapping this up, it's clear the Ambubachi Mela is just layers upon layers. It's way more than a religious festival.
A celebration of life itself.
Yeah, fertility, spirituality, crossing cultural lines. It's this profound reminder about the sacredness of the feminine, its role in creation.
And at that temple, Kamakhya, where myth and reality just seem to merge.
It really does feel like a beacon. Devotion, unity, reflection. Finding the sacred in the natural.
Which leads to maybe one final thought to chew on.
Go for it.
If we take that ancient reverence seriously for natural cycles, for the feminine, like we see in the Mouthfly, how could that genuinely inform our modern approach to sustainability, sure, but maybe even to our own bodies, our biology?
Like, could understanding celebrations like this make us rethink our own societal hang-ups, our relationship with nature, or even our comfort level with basic processes like menstruation?
Exactly. It kind of shows how diving deep into one specific, maybe seemingly niche cultural thing can unlock these really universal questions.
Makes you think critically about your own world, your own assumptions.
Definitely.
Well, we hope this has given you plenty to think about. We encourage you, as always, to continue your own deep dive, maybe look into similar celebrations, or just reflect on how ancient traditions still resonate and shape our world today.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.